Welcome to the first series of the Creating Wellbeing podcast. In the following 3 episodes of this series, we'll concentrate on the emotion of fear, how it can be handled, what implications it has for older people, especially in times of the pandemic, and how the creative skills of carers can help. Let's start by clarifying the meaning of fear and the difference between fear and anxiety. What would you think if someone asked, what's the difference between fear and anxiety? How can fear be recognized? And what are its characteristics? Fear is obviously an emotion, usually a strong one, provoked by a threat which may be real or imagined. With fear comes a set of psychological and physiological reactions, such as rapid heartbeat, muscle tension, and redirection of blood flow away from the periphery toward the gut. That's how our organism mobilizes itself to take action when facing the perceived danger. Anxiety, on the other hand, is not so specific. It refers to the future. The trigger's also not so obvious. It's often undefined, diffused. In everyday communication, these two terms are often used in the same situations and giving them similar meanings. But in the Creating Wellbeing project, we're distinguishing them from each other and look at each emotion in its own podcast series and set of accompanying activities in the activity toolkit. Paul Ekman is one of the most influential researchers in the psychology of emotions. In his research, he named and described 7 universal emotions. Fear is one of them, together with anger, contempt, disgust, enjoyment, sadness, and surprise. He also highlights the fact that while traditionally considered a negative emotion, fear serves an important role in keeping us safe as it mobilizes us to cope with potential danger. Imagine a situation in which someone's facing a threat but doesn't realize it, or doesn't feel fear, and therefore doesn't react accordingly to protect themselves. That would also increase the danger level for that person. And so therefore, fear is a very necessary emotion that can protect us. Ekman also emphasizes that while fear is the threat of harm, real or imagined, as we've already discussed, we can learn to become afraid of nearly anything. When you think about it, you probably know someone that's afraid of something you're not afraid of. And this is important to remember when showing empathy and supporting others with fear they may be facing, even if you don't share that fear. To identify fear, Ekman concentrates on facial and vocal expressions, physical sensations such as feeling cold, shortness of breath, sweating and trembling, or the tightening of muscles in the arms and legs. He goes on to point out that a typical reaction in a situation of fear is taking action to avoid or escape the source of fear. So how does it apply to the COVID-19 pandemic? A number of studies have shown that the psychological effects of the pandemic are extensive, and levels of anxiety, depression, and stress have all increased due to the fear of COVID-19. This fear is caused not only by the risk of serious illness or death, but also accompanies a lot of socially and psychologically stressful situations, such as a feeling of uncertainty, limited access to some services, for instance medical services, lack of personal contact with relatives during lockdowns and other restrictions, and risk of personal and occupational loss. And therefore, fear may manifest itself not only in a simple way, but also in more complex psychological reactions. And so when thinking about supporting the elderly who are facing COVID-19 related fear, we need to be aware that we may not share similar fears, and that their fears may manifest in a range of ways, some of which may not be the same ways our own fears may manifest, or may not even be obvious to us. In the next episode, we'll be describing 6 strategies for coping with and managing fear. Thanks for listening.